That is, yeah, that's the subway and bus program with Omni. When you spend $34 within 7 days, you get free rides for the rest of those 7 day period whenever they first tap to kickstart the 7 days. Remember, that's like if you spend 12, if you do 12 rides, the 13th and after that's free, that's going to go up to $36 with the increase in fares. But the bad news with that is starting early next year, the Metro card will be going away. And going away as well will be the 30-day unlimited MetroCard ride, which is going to be retired. And I know some folks are not happy about that. But the MTA calls that 30-day a regressive cost because you have to pay the $132 up front. And with fare capping, you get the benefits just paying per ride. And they also say not that many people use the program anyways, the unlimited, that is.
Stephen, how are riders reacting?
Well, as they say, never read the comments. They're predictably vitriolic. But our excellent producer, Amanda Rosen, hit the platform and spoke to riders who were somewhat more understanding, maybe a bit resigned. Here's Jonathan Romero from the Bronx.
I mean, obviously it sucks, like a lot of people know the struggle of living in New York. So anytime anything's raised, people just go more angrier. Obviously it's not the best thing to happen.
Stephen, quick question. Is there good news out there for express bus riders?
Right. The express bus riders are now going to be part of this fare capping program, too. Once they spend $67 in a 7-day period, they'll have unlimited rides after that. But the base fare for those trips also is going up from $7 to $7.25. But as our other reporter, James Ramsey, reported recently, it is quite a luxurious ride if you can afford it.
WNYC transportation reporter Stephen Ness. Stephen, great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
WNYC support comes from the Vermont Cheese Council, host of Vermont Cheese Week, featuring the Vermont Cheese Trail, which includes farm stands, cheesemaking viewing, and more from over 30 of Vermont's cheesemakers, September 6th through 13th. More at vtcheese.com.
This is Allison Stewart, host of All of It. Did you know that you can live stream or explore archived episodes of our show for free 24/7? Download the WNYC app today at wnyc.org/app.
The Federal Reserve Chorus is not singing from the same hymnal.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Think or Swim. More at schwab.com. And by Rubrik, dedicated to giving businesses the power to bounce back fast when cyber attacks target the cloud. More at Rubrik.com.
I'm David Brancaccio in Los Angeles. The guardians of interest rates at America's central bank decided now is not the moment to cut interest rates, given the uncertain effects of tariffs and a resilient overall economy. But the committee's decision yesterday was not unanimous. Two people dissented. Our Nancy Marshall-Genzer was at the Fed briefing yesterday. Hey, Nancy.
Hey, David. Well, Fed Governors Michelle Bowman and Christopher Waller were the dissenters. They wanted a 0.25 percentage point cut at this meeting. This is very rare. We haven't had this many Fed governors dissenting since 1993, according to a count by the St. Louis Fed.
Now, Powell likes to let others on his team speak for themselves and not quote discussions. But what was the dissenting case made for cutting rates now, not waiting as they decided?
Well, Powell says the majority view was inflation is still above the Fed's 2% target, and you need to keep interest rates where they are because cutting them prematurely could feed inflation. But Powell told me everyone at the table gave their opinion.
I will say what you hope is that people, explain their positions very thoughtfully and clearly, and we absolutely had that today, all the way around the table. I would call it one of the better meetings I can recall.
Now, Team Fed did not double pinky swear promise to definitely cut rates at the next meeting in September. It's about what the data says happens between now and then.
Oh, yeah. Chair Powell made that very clear yesterday. He said the Fed does not make interest rate decisions in advance, and we'll be getting a fair amount of data over the next few months. Powell pointed out we'll be getting 2 employment and 2 inflation reports between now and the September meeting. He's also keeping an eye on tariffs, and he said they've started to show through on some prices, but their overall effect on inflation remains to be seen.
All right, Nancy, thank you. Just now, the Fed's preferred measure of inflation derived from personal consumption expenditures was in line with expectations for June, with prices up 2.5% in a year. Massive investments in artificial intelligence are yielding actual profits for two big players. Microsoft stock is up more than 9% in pre-market trading right now. Meta, Facebook up about 11%. Amazon and Apple come out with their spring into summer results after the market closes. Those stocks trade on the NASDAQ market. Futures for that index up 1.4% now. S&P futures up 1% even. U.S. officials say a couple more countries have agreed to tariff deals, Thailand and Cambodia. Details are few, but we do know that South Korea is on board, the U.S. putting a 15% import tax on its profits. Korea gets the same tariff rate for cars and semiconductors as Japan. Jean McKenzie reports from Seoul.
When Japan and the EU secured 15% deals last week, South Korea was suddenly under pressure to achieve the same. Seoul sells more to the US than any other country other than China, and far more than it buys in return. So this deal was vitally important. It's being touted as a success here because Seoul didn't have to bend to requests from the US to allow it to sell more rice and beef here. What this deal doesn't cover is the cost of thousands of US troops stationed in South Korea who help defend it from the north.
Jean McKenzie, BBC in Seoul.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance with Snapshot. Learn more about Snapshot at Progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Snapshot not available in California or from all agents. And by This Old House Radio Hour podcast, answering listeners' DIY and renovation questions and diving into home design trends. Available in podcast apps.
There are weather forecasters and there are professional job forecasters who predict we'll see less hiring when the official July report comes out tomorrow. We'll also be tracking people actively looking for work versus those who've stopped looking for now. That overall size of what the government defines as the labor force fell sharply in May and June, a warning sign. Trump administration ICE raids are part of this. Marketplace's Mitchell Hartman reports.
Here's what the BLS's recent jobs reports have shown, says Sam Kuhn at recruiting firm Appcast.
Over the past 2 months, the labor force has declined by more than 750,000.
And roughly coinciding with that,
decline of 382,000 over a 3-month average in the foreign-born labor force.
That category includes both documented and undocumented workers. Economist Joe Brusuelas at consulting firm RSM says under the Trump administration, border crossings have plummeted, arrests and deportations have risen sharply.
The crackdown on migrant labor has resulted in a decline in the labor supply.
Eventually, fewer people available to hire, combined with a lower unemployment rate, could encourage workers to demand higher wages, which Brusuelas says would alarm the Fed since it could drive up price inflation. For now, employers tell economist Ray Perryman in Texas that immigrant workers aren't showing up for work and fewer are available to hire. He says the problem's acute in agriculture and the food industry.
The shrimpers on the Gulf Coast are also having a difficult time. Texas has had a lot of growth recently, and the construction projects obviously are having a hard time finding enough staff.
And in a state like Texas, with a large immigrant population, Perryman says the impact of the crackdown will be outsized.
We've really come to rely on the workforce from Mexico to a very large extent. If you look at the undocumented segment of it, 35 to 40% of our construction workforce, about 50% of our agricultural workforce, and about 30% of our hospitality workforce.
And the impact will be different from state to state, depending on how much of their labor force is foreign-born, says Haley Brown at the Center for Economic and Policy Research. For instance,
the share of the child care workforce that is foreign-born is much, much higher in Alaska than it is in North Dakota.
40% versus about 10%. Sam Kuhn at Appcast says high-skilled sectors are especially vulnerable to a decline in legal immigration.
The broad sector, professional and business services, nearly 1 in 4 workers are foreign-born, right? And that is a sector that's producing chips or they're producing software.
He says foreign competitors will be eager to snap up some of those workers. I'm Mitchell Hartman for Marketplace.
And the number of announced layoffs in July went up 29% from June, according to a fresh report just now from Challenger Gray and Christmas. Job losses due to AI and tariffs are increasingly blamed. It's the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Support for WNYC comes from the New York Phil. Tickets are on sale now for the 2025